One warm spring morning, Rabbit knew that it was going to be one of his busy days. "It is just the day for doing things," he said, scratching his whiskers. He decided he would walk across the forest to visit his great friend, Pooh Bear. Just as he said that, though, a voice called out, "Is anyone at home?" Rabbit decided he was far too busy for visitors and called back, "Nobody is at home." "But isn't that you, Rabbit?" called the voice again. Rabbit thought to himself, then replied that Rabbit had gone to visit his friend Pooh. "But this is Pooh," said the voice, sounding very surprised. So Rabbit invited him in for some tea. Rabbit got out the plates and mugs and offered Pooh some honey or condensed milk to have with his bread. Pooh was careful to visit his friends around 11 o'clock, was very pleased to be offered a little something. Before long, Pooh had eaten everything in the dishes and said to Rabbit in a rather sticky voice that he must be going. Pooh pushed his nose and paws through the hole that was Rabbit's front door, but his tummy wouldn't follow. "Oh, bother," sniffed Pooh. "I'm stuck." So Rabbit went out of his back door and walked around to see Pooh. Rabbit tut-tutted at the silly old bear. "Give me your paw, Pooh," he said. Rabbit pulled and pulled and pulled, but Pooh was too tightly stuck. A tear rolled down Pooh's cheek. "I shall go and fetch Christopher Robin," said Rabbit, and trotted off hurriedly. Before long, Rabbit returned with Christopher Robin. "There's only one thing to be done," Christopher Robin said solemnly. "We shall have to wait for him to get thin again, so we can pull you out." Poor old Pooh. He would have to stay in the hole without any food for a whole week. So each day for a week, Christopher Robin came to read stories at the north end of Pooh, while Rabbit kept busy in his house at the south end of Pooh. At first, Rabbit was rather annoyed that he couldn't use his front door. But when he discovered how useful Pooh's back legs were for drying his washing, he soon cheered up. At the end of the week, Christopher Robin told hold of Pooh's front paws, and Rabbit and all his friends and relations lined up behind. They all pulled together, and then suddenly out came Pooh with a pop. Pooh waved goodbye to his friends and walked home through the forest, humming a little hum to himself. Rabbit returned to Christopher Robin and said, "You and I have a brain. Others just have fluff." Christopher Robin smiled. "Silly old bear," he said, looking after Pooh. The next morning, it was Rabbit who was visiting Pooh. He hurried through the 100-acre wood, feeling more important with each step, until soon he came to Pooh's house. Rabbit knocked at the door loudly. "Hullo, Pooh," said Rabbit. "Hullo, Rabbit," said Pooh. Then, "Was it 14 or 15? "Bother." "Was what?" said Rabbit. "My pots of honey," sighed Pooh. "I was counting." "Let's call it 16, said Rabbit kindly. "Now I came here to ask, have you seen Small anywhere about?" Pooh thought to himself, then thought some more, then said, "Who is Small?" "He's one of my friends and relations," said Rabbit carelessly. This made Pooh even more muddled as to whether he had seen Small around and about, as Rabbit had so many friends and relations. "Well, no one has seen Small for a long time," said Rabbit, "so I promised Christopher Robin that I would organise a search." And that's just what Rabbit did. Before long, he had gathered together as many of his friends and relations as he could find. Hedgehogs, squirrels, mice, and smaller rabbits all wanted to help look for Small. Rabbit lined up and said importantly, "Small is lost. We must begin the search at once." Rabbit then asked Christopher Robin to explain to all the animals where and when it was exactly that Small had gone missing. Small was taking some exercise, walking around a gorse bush. Then he didn't come back again. "Ha!" said Rabbit. "Did he say goodbye before he went?" "I don't think so," said Christopher Robin. "Lost," said Rabbit. A little later, Pooh left his house to join the search for Small, not remembering that Small was very small beetle. Pooh decided to first look for Piglet, who would tell him what Small looked like. Then Pooh would know whether he ought to be looking for Small high up in an oak tree or down low in a buttercup. Pooh found Piglet in a funny place indeed, and quite by accident, in the bottom of a pit for heffalumps. There they stayed worrying about whether a heffalump might appear until Christopher Robin came to help them out again. Then, suddenly, Piglet spotted Small climbing up Pooh's back. "You have found Small," squeaked Piglet. "I thought I had," said Pooh. "We must tell Rabbit," said Piglet, rather excitedly, and ran off to find him straight away. 2 days later, Rabbit was taking one of his brisk walks in the forest when he happened to bump into Eeyore. "Hello, Eeyore," he said. "What are you doing?" "I'm looking for Small," said Eeyore in his usual gloomy way. "Didn't I tell you," said Rabbit. "Small was found 2 days ago by Pooh." Now, on days when Rabbit wasn't quite so busy, and when he didn't have things to organise, he liked to join his friends in a game of Poohsticks. Rabbit was always the one who said go, and then everyone would drop their sticks in the river and run to the other side of the bridge to see whose stick would come out first. One sunny day, 4 friends were playing the game. "Can you see your stick, Piglet?" cried Roo, who was very excited. "Can you see yours, Pooh?" "I can't see mine." "They always take longer than you think," said Rabbit wisely. "I can see a sort of greyish one," said Pooh. "Look, Rabbit, here it comes." And out floated Eeyore from under the bridge, with his legs in the air. "It's Eeyore!" cried everybody. "We didn't know you were playing," called Roo to Eeyore in the river. "Wrong," Eeyore replied. "I'm waiting for someone to help me out of the river." "But Eeyore, how will we do that?" wondered Winnie-the-Pooh. "He's going round and round," smiled Roo. "I didn't want to go swimming today," sighed Eeyore. Rabbit scratched his whiskers and tried to think of a plan, but it was Pooh who had an idea, though it wasn't sure whether it was a very good one. "If we throw a big stone into the river, then it could make waves and wash Eeyore to the side," said the Bear of Little Brain. "That's a very good idea," said Rabbit, and Pooh cheered up. So Pooh went to look for the biggest stone he could find. When Rabbit had inspected it, Pooh held the stone between his paws and carried it to the bridge. "Now, when I say so, Pooh will drop his stone," said Rabbit. "Thank you, Rabbit," said Pooh. "Stand back, Piglet," said Rabbit, taking charge. "Give Pooh some more room. Ready? Now." Pooh dropped his stone into the river below. There was a splash. Then Eeyore disappeared. Rabbit, Pooh, Piglet and Roo looked on from the bridge. They began to worry. Then suddenly something big and grey appeared, and there he was. Poor Eeyore, you are all wet, said Piglet. Why were you in the river? Asked Rabbit, drying Eeyore with Piglet's handkerchief. Did you fall in? No, said Eeyore. I was bounced. Then from behind the hedge out came Tigger. Hello, everybody, he smiled. Now, said Rabbit in a very important voice, what just happened? Just when? Said Tigger. When you bounced me into the river, said Eeyore. It wasn't a bounce, it was a cough, said Tigger, sounding cross. It was a bounce, said Eeyore. Eeyore was grumbling that bouncing was very different from coughing, and he really would know the difference when Christopher Robin came out of the forest, feeling happy and careless. Rabbit held up his paw. Hush, he said. What does Christopher Robin think? Christopher Robin was not quite sure, so he decided they should play another game of Poohsticks. So that's what they did. And Eeyore, who had never played before, won more times than anybody else. Then later on, Kanga took Roo home to bed, and Tigger and Eeyore followed. And Rabbit, who didn't much like playing Poohsticks when he wasn't winning, decided to go home too. But Christopher Robin, Pooh and Piglet stayed behind for just one more game. Goodbye.